welcome to Season 3, Episode 8 of the Big at the Back podcast. We're back. It's international break time. Matt, how are you feeling?
Not too bad. Just a shame that it is an international break already. They just sort of creep up on you. 4 games in, it's far too early for an international break, but I don't know why I'm surprised it happens every year. Other than that, not too bad. Cricket lost at the weekend, didn't get promoted, so that was disappointing, but still got very battered afterwards, so it could have been worse. But yeah, not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. It means you've got a chance of promotion next season at least. Look on the positive side, you would have been fighting off relegation in the higher league.
Well, that is definitely the silver lining.
Much like Manchester United, you know your level. So let's get into the podcast.
I thought you were going to say much like Man United have got a team full of rapists and wife beaters. But...
We're going there. Okay. 5 seconds in, guys. We're going there. So this is an FPL podcast, so we should start by talking about our FPL team. But just before we do that, let's give a bit of an announcement because today is a very, very special week for the Big at the Back podcast. What are we doing today, Matthew Higgins?
Oh, I thought there was something else that you were going on about then. I thought that was I don't know, is it someone's birthday or I don't know, did you lose your virginity? I don't know.
No, definitely not on that front.
But yeah, we are doing an FPL classic buy, sell, hold. So we'll be looking through the main assets and teams and what we think we should be doing after the 4 weeks that we've had so far, where I feel like we have learned quite a lot and there's been a few surprises as well. So none more surprising than West Ham being in a Champions League place.
Not doing badly, are they? Doing very, very well. Just to let you know, I was joking about the virginity thing. I mean, I went to a Catholic school, so... We can leave that where it is. 2 minutes 19. Can we get lower every minute? But yeah, buy, sell, hold. So, what players are we going to buy in FPL? What players are we saying goodbye, get rid of in FPL? And what players are we going to hold? Perhaps hold a little bit too tightly, like Anthony did, for instance.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Wow.
This might already be our most derogatory podcast. You called this. You're the one that started this. Now you've got to see it through. So
that's fair. I can't even deny that.
Let's jump into our teams before we descend into madness. So go on. How did you do for the week?
Bang average. Literally bang on the average of 72. Didn't take any hits. So I didn't take any transfers at all, actually. So I rolled over a transfer that I'm going to hold for after the international break and then maybe take a hit then. So for once, I chose the right keeper, but it didn't really make any difference because Ariola got 2 points and Pickford got 1, but Pickford did score an own goal, which was pretty funny. The defence letting us down this week, really. White 2, Stupinian 2, Saliba 2 and Chilwell 1. Very disappointing that Chelsea failed to keep a clean sheet at home to Nottingham Forest. The midfield was slightly better. Rashford with 7, Saka with 4, Diaz with 3, and Bama with 8, and Richarlison. Fuck me, Richarlison, mate. Speaking of sell, see you later. And then, of course, Captain Haaland up front. So that was the big winner for me. Over half of my team's points, but I think that can be the same for most people this week. 40 points, not really much more you can ask for, is there?
I mean, I don't want to spoil our buy, sell, hold conversation, but I already rage transferred out Richarlison. So right before it, do not do that. That's a very bad idea. Do not make transfers before the international break unless you are so pissed off and it feels good to do, which in my case counted.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I do hope it comes back to bite you in the arse because it will be funny, but I don't blame you.
I'm more worried about if Salah leaves, but if he does, I'm just going to take the -4, go to Son, and just deal with it. So my team, I ended up on 80 points. I said on the podcast last week I was going to move. What was I saying last week? Salah.
You think I listened to what you're saying?
Yeah. So last week I was saying that I would move Salah to Sterling and someone Royale to Walker and I think João Pedro to Jackson. I made none of those changes. So I ended up moving Rashford to Sterling. Ended up being a bit of a meh move, but I saved the 2 million, which allowed me to make the change up front. And I talked myself out of going Jackson because I remembered that actually he was a really bad player. So I just thought a better player in a better team, I'm going to go with Julian Alvarez, which worked out really well. So strike partnership of Alvarez on 14 points, Haaland on 40 points as captain, Salah, Saka and Matoma, my scorers in midfield. Everyone else on 2s or 1s, but it's put me on 80 points, which is a decent game week. Some green arrows, and too early to speak about rank, admittedly, but within the top 1 million, up to 816,000. So I'm feeling all right about it, to be honest.
Yeah, that's not too bad at all. I'll just do a quick update of the joint team as well. So we did take a 4-point hit, which left us on a total of 78 points for the week, 82 points before the hit. Big scorers for us. Trent, we do have in there with his 12 points. Salah as well with 8. Haaland, obviously, captain. Jared Bowen as well, sitting in there in his good form at the start of the season. But we do also have Richarlison in that team as well. So, God, he's really done us in every single way possible.
You know what? It was a punt. It was a risk. At the start of the season, it made sense. He was going to be the main striker for a Spurs team that needed a striker. James Maddison providing for him. The logic was sound. What we forgot
was he's Richarlison.
He's Richarlison, exactly. So, and you know what? He's going to go and score a hat-trick against Sheffield United. Son's going to be moved back out to the wing, and Richarlison will be in that striker role. He'll go and score a hat-trick. It's going to be awful.
Really, I really hope that happens.
That being said, let's dive into the main content, which is the buy, sell, hold. And I think normally people go keepers, but keepers feel a bit boring this season. So why don't we go the other way around? We can start with strikers. So when you're talking about strikers, we can't be speaking about Haaland because he's owned by, I think, 87% of the game. If you don't have him, you've already lost FPL. Give up already. Don't bother. But every other striker is on the table. So let's go through some of the most picked strikers. And I think the biggest buy at the moment is Julian Alvarez.
Yeah, I think there was at the start of the season, he was a tempter and I had him in a draft. And then I ended up moving away from him literally on the Friday before the opening game of the season.
The season was starting, right?
Yeah, so there was that panic. But the injury to Kevin De Bruyne has actually really helped him out. He's pretty much nailed in that 10 role now. He's getting up alongside Haaland quite often. So he has been a real beneficiary of that De Bruyne injury. And he's the second highest top scorer in striker behind Haaland. And the way they play, they're going to make chances. He's going to get on some of them. He's going to get assists. So he is, for the duration of De Bruyne's injury, he seems like an almost must-have at this point, the two City strikers.
Yeah, and I brought him in and felt really, really justified for doing so. I was absolutely bricking myself before the game started, thinking Jackson could punish me. But yeah, Alvarez is a bit of a no-brainer. 6.6 million as well, or 6.7 he's gone up to now. So still really, really cheap for a guy that's got 28 FPL points in just 4 games. So,
only one blank.
Only one blank in that as well, averaging 7 points a game. Really, really, really top striker. And while he's playing and getting regular minutes for City, it's a bit of a no-brainer. What are your thoughts on the man of the moment, Ferguson?
The man of the moment who looks like he desperately wants to play for England and not Ireland. Man
of the moment.
I love that, though. Like, yeah, let's just withdraw with an injury because he's played 2 games for Ireland. So if he plays a third, he's locked into playing for Ireland. And he's withdrawn from the squad for injury. You love to see it. You'd like to think that hat-trick means he's going to be first-choice striker now. And you'd hope that that's the case. Because if that is the case, then at 6 million, he seems like, again, a no-brainer to get in your side. But there's always the worry that they've got a bit of a rotation policy at Brighton, especially in that sort of front 4. But you think now, a hat trick. Like, he dominated a Newcastle defence who have been underwhelming this season, admittedly, but you've got to be looking at him now, haven't you?
So first thing on the rotation, Danny Welbeck's got a bit of a medium-term injury, so he doesn't look like he's coming back anytime soon. So I think Ferguson is nailed. He is just about to buy for me. And I'll tell you what, the fixtures aren't the best. So they've got Manchester United away, then Bournemouth at home, then Villa away, then Liverpool at home, then City away. After that, though, from game week 10, it's Fulham, it's Everton, Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, and then you've got a tough game in Brentford. But that's 5 really, really good games all in a row for Ferguson from game week 10 to 14. So I think he is a buy, especially with Manchester United's defence being the way it is and Bournemouth being Bournemouth. But then there's 3 really tough games. I'm looking at using my wild card probably around game week 9. So for me, that's when I would be realistically looking at moving Ferguson in, not before then.
Yeah, I think that probably makes sense. Those fixtures are just a little bit disappointing for them, aren't they? And I say this as someone who's got fucking João Pedro as one of his strikers at the moment, and that seems like an easy move. But if you want to keep, but it just feels like you want to push that back a few weeks, wait until after that City fixture, and then you can really sort of hope that they can hit the ground running again after that. And then, don't get me wrong, they haven't been disappointing. Like, the only game they haven't picked up 3 points was against the mighty West Ham, which no one would have predicted that. Yeah. And you could argue that the Man U fixture's a decent fixture still.
I do as well. João Pedro talked to me against the Man U team that's going to be starting Evans and Maguire. João Pedro.
What a pairing that is. Yeah, he's like going back in time.
Wild. But João Pedro yet to score from open play. However, he started against Newcastle and looks like a man who had got the message because he worked his socks off in that game. I think for me, João Pedro is a hold at the moment. You're not buying him, but I think if you've got him, he's a good hold. And I've just sold him for Alvarez. But if I hadn't have done that, I would have been looking to move Mbama on.
He's a hold for probably the next 2 fixtures. Then if he hasn't performed at that point, he's out. I think that's a fairly easy decision to make. But at the same time, you've only got 3 striker slots. And it depends what you need to do with your team. For me, it seems like one that I would quite happily move on at this point because I think there's better options out there. I think that's the only problem for me.
Yeah, fair enough. I can't give my opinion on this one because I love him too much. Darwin Núñez.
Well, you are the one that... I mean, I like him as well. Don't get me wrong. 2 returns in his last 2 games.
No, 4 returns in his last 2 games.
But he's returned in his last 2 games after being benched for the first 2. So it feels like there's been a bit of a switch there from Klopp. The big worry is this Saudi transfer window and what happens with Mo Salah. And if he goes, how does that change the whole dynamic of the Liverpool side?
If Mo Salah goes, Darwin's guaranteed more minutes. If Mo Salah stays, Darwin has a world-class player providing him in a team that he's starting for. I don't think it matters. I think Trent could easily move to that right wing spot and we could have Joe Gomez come and cover right back. I think if Salah goes, it's not as disastrous as everyone makes it out to be. I love Mo Salah. Like, he's scored or assisted 36% of Jurgen Klopp's Premier League goals with Liverpool. It's absolutely wild.
That's a fantastic stat.
Yeah, but I don't think that it necessarily affects Darwin so much. I think Darwin Núñez is, for me, a buy. Now, the question is, do you buy him for the next 2 fixtures, which are Wolves away and West Ham at home, or do you wait until game week 9? Because in between them, you've got Tottenham and Brighton both away in 7 and 8. So it's a question of, do you hold and just hope he doesn't punish you against Wolves and West Ham, and then you buy in game week 9, or do you just take the plunge now?
I really don't like that you're including West Ham in the same bracket as Wolves there.
You're right. Do you leave Wolves, take the plunge against West Ham?
Fuck you. I think there's probably better options. That's my issue at the moment. I think he's a hold. I don't think you're in any rush to get rid of him. But obviously, the problem you've got is limited striker spaces and where that money's going. Because he is on the more expensive side of the strikers. Obviously, Haaland's one. And then of the rest, he's sort of
7.4
slightly more expensive.
I mean, 7.4 is not a lot in the context of. I mean, Darwin Nunez, if he's starting every game, will get more points on FPL this season than Bukayo Saka at 8.6.
Oh, that's a shout.
If he's starting every game, and that's a big if, by the way, because
that's the problem. Yeah.
But if Darwin Nunez nails down a place in that Liverpool side, then he'll get more FPL points than Saka this season. I don't think 7.4 is a lot when you're getting a real quality, chaotic striker. And I say
he is chaos, isn't he? Yeah.
I think Darwin Nunez is a buy. Ollie Watkins.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because he's only blanked in one game, but he just doesn't feel like he's really doing anything. He hasn't scored, which is obviously what strikers are there to do. And at an 8 million striker, which is, again, on the more expensive side, you want goals. I know 3 assists in 4 games is pretty impressive, and Villa seem to be coming good after their sort of not at the weekend. Sorry, like they've had 2 good games like back to back, and then they've been sandwiched between 2 slightly poor performances. So it just feels like they're a bit up and down. I think it's probably a sell at this point.
Okay, interesting. I think Villa's fixtures actually look really good. They've got Palace at home, and then it's Chelsea away, then Brighton at home, but then it's Wolves, West Ham, Luton, Forest. I can see a world where you hold Ollie Watkins. I don't love it, but Chelsea and Crystal Palace both conceding goals. I'll tell you what, Nicholas Jackson, let's do that, and then I'll pose a question to you. Nicholas Jackson.
I don't even know where to begin.
Bournemouth away, Aston Villa at home, Fulham away, Burnley away. For the next 4 fixtures.
You just look like, again,
garbage.
And that the fixtures look so good, but his performance looks so bad, and it pains me to say it. But I thought when he got that first goal. When he got that first goal, it would be a way to kick on. But that miss at the weekend,
But it wasn't just that miss. It was just the general play. He is completely off the pace for the rest of the Chelsea team. Raheem Sterling and Conor Gallagher are both playing really well, but they don't have anyone to link up their moves. Jackson is just, I said it after the first half in Luton, a terrible footballer. And maybe he'll come good, but he's what everyone thinks Darwin Nunez is.
Here's a question for you. Who would you rather have in your fantasy team? Jackson or Havertz?
See, let's stick with strikers. I want to ping that question back to you, but change it slightly. If you had both, who would you sell, Ollie Watkins or Nicholas Jackson right now?
Oh, that is a tough one.
And I would rather to answer your question.
I'd rather have Jackson out of Jackson and Havertz. No doubt about that. You know my feelings towards Kai Havertz. I think I would probably keep Jackson.
I don't think I would. I think Jackson's minutes are under threat now. Amanda Broya is still there, who can play the striker role and can actually link up play and score goals. I don't think Jackson is a guaranteed 90 minutes. I think Ollie Watkins is as guaranteed as you could find in strikers, even though that's not very high. So, yeah, for me, Jackson's a sell. He looks so bad.
I just,
Or maybe a hold.
yeah.
But he needs time away from the Premier League where his manager can work with him and build his confidence up on the training pitch. And maybe he'll come good, but he looks terrible in the first lot of games.
Yeah, like I say, that goal I thought would sort of be the kick up the arse he needed and sort of get him going and up and running a bit, but it hasn't happened so far, and it was Luton, and they look bad.
Yeah, completely. So let's then... Are there any other forwards you want to discuss, or should we move on? Oh, let's talk about...
Solanke.
better. Divock Origi is back in the Premier League, guys.
Yay!
5 million. There's a spot. Playing for Nottingham Forest, the mighty Knots, who just kept a clean sheet against Chelsea at the Bridge. Come on!
Yeah, but Taiwo Awoniyi is not going to break the record for most consecutive Premier League games in which he scored. So that's disappointing.
Can I also just say, 4.5 million, Cameron Archer has just moved to Sheffield United. He's going to be starting. He'll get the occasional goal. That's the perfect striker spot as the third striker.
Scored at the weekend, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Got a goal at the weekend. No one was starting.
Lovely finish.
No one was starting him, let's be honest. But as a 4.5 million striker, that's exactly what you want.
Yeah, definitely. That is... dependent on what you're doing when you're wildcarding and how you want to line, that is the Mubama switch, isn't it? It's Mubama to Archer.
100%. Anything for Edouard?
I love him, but that's not really much more I can say about that. I don't feel confident enough in Palace to get any of them in. As much as I like Edouard, and I like Eze, and I like Mateta as well. Not that he starts. I just think that I think they're exciting players, but you can't get any of them in.
I completely agree. Palace, you're not really going there till like game week 11 or so when they have Burnley, Everton, Luton in a row. So until then, I'm on the probably sell. Well, no, you'd hold, I think. Let's move to midfielders. And should we start with Richarlison? Should we just get that out of the way?
Sell. Next.
Why James Maddison? Like, he looks awesome. He's been returning every single game. I think even when he goes up to 8 million, which he will, I still think is great value, and you've got money to do it this season. Yeah, I think James Maddison's a bit of a no-brainer as a buy.
Yeah, definitely. He is what we wanted Richarlison to be. Consistent returns, playing in an exciting side. And the problem that Richarlison's got now, which Maddison definitely doesn't have, is being dropped. And Maddison is a banker to start every game and probably play a good amount of minutes in every game. And he's making things happen. He's a creator. He's dangerous with set pieces. And he's getting... something we didn't really see much from him at Leicester is making those late runs into the box and getting on the end of balls as well. So, yeah, he definitely seems like an absolute no-brainer right now.
Yeah, for sure. What about Heung-min Son?
And this is the counterpoint to the Richarlison thing, isn't it? If Richarlison's getting dropped, then it makes sense that Son plays in that more central role, which he did. It looked like he did quite a bit of the weekend and obviously bagged a hat-trick. He is more expensive. He's 9.1 now after a price rise. So dependent, again, on the balance of your side, he is very much one that is worth keeping an eye on. Maybe it feels a bit stupid to say you've got to sort of let the Sheffield United game go because that seems like the great time to get him in. But with Arsenal and Liverpool after that, it's maybe worth waiting until after those two games when they then have Luton and Fulham as their next two after that.
Yeah, I think it's a struggle, isn't it? But I think I guess I'm a little worried. We saw last season Tottenham started really well. I think they beat Man City, didn't they? Early in the season, 1-0, 2-0. Emerson Royale was
1-0, yeah.
And then they went all Spurs on us. We're only 4 games in. If you also remember last season, Son did a thing where he came on got a hat-trick against Danny Ward, and everyone, including me, was shouting about him being great and Son is back, blah, blah, blah. And what happens after that?
Yeah, he reverted to type for the season. So yeah, you don't want to jump the shark. So that's why I think give it a few games.
I completely agree. I think with Son, if you've got him, you're obviously holding. He's definitely not a sell. But I think if you don't have him, I don't think he's a buy until you're looking at that game week 8 point.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I'm going to bring things back around to my guy, Jared Bowen. What's your opinions on him?
I love him. He's the second highest scoring midfielder in the league, 7.1 million, 30 points so far. The challenge with Jared Bowen is that he's kind of destroyed by the fixtures they've got coming up. So if you look at the next load of fixtures, they have a nice easy game next of Man City, a nice easy game after that of Liverpool.
That's basically a title decider, isn't it? The next one.
I mean, maybe next you never know. And then they've got Sheffield United at home, but then it's Newcastle at home, and then it's around that game week 9 point the fixtures start turning for them. The caveat being that last season West Ham were very knackered very quickly when they had European football. So, providing they're still firing on all cylinders, Jared Bowen will be in my wildcard side, but he's a sell at the moment for me. I don't like it, but those fixtures and the European football coming in means that he's just not on my radar at all.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? How are we going to cope when those Europa League fixtures start in a few weeks' time? Thankfully, we've got quite a nice group, which hopefully means that we can get some good results early doors. And I feel like we've got better strength in depth in our squad at the moment. Obviously, losing Rice was a big loss, but we're almost playing better without him. Obviously, it's very early days, but the money has been reinvested wisely. Alvarez has come in and done a great job. Will Prowse has come in and hit the ground running, and Mohamed Kudus has come in as well. Still yet to see what he can do. So I think overall we're looking at a good, well-rounded side, but those Thursday, Sunday fixtures do make it a lot harder to back anyone.
Yeah, agreed. Give me your thoughts. Buy, sell, hold on Liverpool midfielders, assuming Salah stays. So Salah, Luis Diaz, Szoboszlai, and Jota.
I think it's regardless. I think it's just all hold at the moment. The only one you could potentially make an argument for buying would be Salah if you haven't already got him and you can make it work with the funds and things like that. But I think the rest are just holds because you've got decent fixtures coming up, but it still remains to be seen exactly with Jota, especially the Jota Darwin rotation. You've got that to worry about. Szoboszlai, I don't think he's necessarily a sell, but he's probably the least exciting out of all of them, despite his goal at the weekend.
Yeah, I agree. And he looks like a really, really top-class player. We got an absolute bargain there for 60 million. Him and McAllister look really, really good. That being said, I don't think he's necessarily an FPL option, despite the goal. Love the idea of Mo Salah as a differential. And I think lots of people are going to be selling him for Son. So if he stays, then that could be, considering the fixtures coming up, that could be really, really exciting to have Mo Salah for the next few games.
Yeah, definitely. It's weird to say these days, isn't it, that Salah's a differential? How times have changed. What I'm basically saying is I was ahead of my time last year by not having Salah in my team.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but Salah still returns in literally every single game week so far. So as much as you can say, oh, I'm Mr. No Salah, he's got 5, 5, 5, 8. Now, not good enough considering what we've seen from him, but still brilliantly consistent. And if you remember a few seasons ago when he basically passed, I think 300 points or something like that, or 280, he returns in like the first 22 game weeks in a row. And it was that consistency that got him there, not necessarily the big calls.
Yeah, I think the only saving grace was that missed penalty. So it could have been even better.
Yeah, completely. So if you look at it, I think Salah as a buy, I think Luis Diaz is a hold. The others I would put as an immediate sell.
Yeah, that seems fair enough. What are your take on the Brighton midfielders? So you've got March, you've got Matoma. They're probably the main two, I guess, at the moment. Where do you sit on those?
So I've got Matoma, who actually was really, really involved. Solly March a lot less so. But it always seems to be the way that Mitoma's a lot more involved, but March normally picks up the FPL points. I mean, this season, March is already on 6 points more than Mitoma. And March is selected by 10% of teams, Mitoma by 40% of the teams. So if you wanted to be a bit differential, you'd go for March. That being said, the fixtures aren't great, but given how they tore Newcastle to shreds, the next three are Man U away, you'd fancy Brighton. Bournemouth at home, you'd fancy Brighton, and Villa away, again, you'd fancy Brighton before it's City and Liverpool. So for me, I think Brighton are a hold. Mitoma and March are a hold. I wouldn't be buying them, but I certainly wouldn't be selling them, especially ahead of the next three.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think I don't have either of them. I think, yeah, if you've got them, you're holding them. I said it, and I said it last season. I was wrong, but I think Solly March has got his points for the season.
He's absolutely going to score a few now. Now you said that, you might as well transfer him in. There's your Richarlison replacement done. I'm going to throw a name at you that I rage transferred Richarlison out, and I transferred in Moussa Diaby from Aston Villa, who, don't get me wrong, all of Villa looks bad against Liverpool, but he was their most impressive player. And the game before that against Burnley, he got a goal and an assist, 12 points. Against Newcastle, he was the one that scored their goal.
Lovely goal as well, that was.
Yeah, I think he looks like a really top player. And I think, given they've got a decent run of fixtures coming up, he's the one, rather than Watkins, that's going to get the FPL points and the goals, I think. So I'm taking a bit of a risk. I'm going Diaby over Mbemo, which I'm already kind of regretting. But I think Diaby could be a really, really good pick as we move into the season.
I like him. I think, if I remember rightly, I mentioned him in our pre-season Villa preview pod. I say that it wasn't a Villa preview pod, but you know what I mean. So I think he was one that I had an eye on from the start, and I've definitely still got an eye on him. And like you say, those next bunch of fixtures are very tempting. He's definitely one that could be on the radar to go in for Richarlison, but obviously Maddison just seems so much more of an obvious pick that it'd be hard for me to veer away from that. But Diaby's definitely a hold, potentially even edging towards a buy, but I'd want to see one or two more fixtures before I really went for him. Crystal Palace next, then Chelsea. So just maybe after those, and then Brighton. So it doesn't get easy in those, like, as you go through their next few fixtures. Speaking of Chelsea, your man that you mentioned earlier, Raheem the Dream.
Is he a problem, or is Jackson the problem? I mean, he would have walked away with at least an assist and probably a goal or two if Jackson wasn't such a rubbish player. So is it, did we get overhyped? And is it the Eze argument of you can be playing really well and looking brilliant, but if he's surrounded by dross, he's not getting points? So for me, Sterling's a hold. He's still got good fixtures ahead, but he's certainly not a buy that he was last week.
I think I'm inclined to agree with you on that. But like you say, those fixtures are very tempting. It's just really hard to get too excited about him with the lack of quality around him in those sort of attacking areas at the moment. He's the only one that really looks like he's causing defenses any problems.
Yeah. And it's very, very frustrating. But for me, he's a hold. He's not a sell.
I want to also ask you about, and you said you haven't got him in and you're already worried about him. Brian Mbemo, talk to me, because how good was that goal at the weekend, by the way?
He is so good. And it was a rage transfer. If I was doing it logically and looking back, I would have gone Mbemo. I may even go -4 and go Mitoma to Mbemo because I just need to get him in. It's stupid that I don't have him in. The next 2 fixtures still look good for Brentford. And once you've got Mbemo, you can just forget about it for the season. I don't know why I'm fighting him. So then I could very well end up taking a -4, dropping Matoma and getting Mbemo in.
Yeah, I think you can probably argue that it might be worth holding a week for that Newcastle fixture to pass. But then it's Everton and Forest, United, Burnley.
So actually, that's probably what I'll end up doing. It'll be my free transfer the week after.
Yeah, I think that's probably worth, because with those next 2 fixtures, and Mbemo has Newcastle and Mitoma has Man United. I'd say they're comparable, so it's unlikely that Mbemo outscores him by 4 points in that fixture.
Yeah, speaking of comparable, I mean, Newcastle got torn to shreds, and while Newcastle have good fixtures coming up, as we've spoken about from game week 6, their fixtures really turn. But the Champions League starts, and have you seen their group? So who's going to be playing in the Premier League and who's going to be playing in the Champions League? Alexander Isak doesn't have the legs for both competitions. They can't rest players in the Champions League groups because they're going out at the group stage. They're going to want to make an impact while going out. I don't think you touch anyone from Newcastle across the team at the moment, except maybe Nick Pope.
Yeah, potentially. I just think that is the definition of group of death, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Newcastle, AC Milan, Borussia Dortmund, and PSG. Welcome back to the big time, boys. But yeah, you'd imagine there's going to be a bit of a mix-up between Isak and Wilson. They're going to be sharing a lot of minutes. So it's hard to really bank on one of them. And Isak hasn't done anything since that first game when he bagged a couple. So yeah, it's hard really. I don't think there's anyone. I know you were talking about Trippier a little while ago, and that's obviously well off the table now.
Yeah.
It is quite fun to see them sitting in 14th in the table, though.
Well, the next game as well is Brentford at home. That's not an easy game.
Yeah, they've got to look past that Brentford game, which will be tricky, but you'd like to think at home they've got enough. That's a game that they've got to be winning if they want to be pushing on to the next level. And you could probably say the same about their next 6 games.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the whole team from Newcastle is just a hard avoid at the moment for me, even though the fixtures do turn and do look very good.
Yeah.
We were on midfielders and we haven't touched. Last year, our favourite team in FPL. This year, not so much. Arsenal midfielders. Saka's a must-have. Everyone's got him. Everyone will keep him. He's a hold or he's a buy. Martinelli and Odegaard are worse options than Havertz. Discuss.
No, just no. So that's all that needs to be said about that. Even Declan Rice is a better option than Kai Havertz.
Oh, that miss where he just completely missed the ball. I did enjoy our group chat's reaction, including our Arsenal friend who was super good.
He's just like...
He's a bad
you can say anything you want about Chelsea's transfer dealings, but getting £65 million for Kai Havertz is
70 for Mount is even better because he's worse.
He's not worse. No one's worse.
Yes,
it's just not possible. But yeah, getting that much money for those two is business masterstroke.
Yeah, agreed. But maybe let's not talk about Chelsea's midfield for just fear of laughing for the entire rest of the pod. Martinelli and Odegaard, what are your thoughts?
A hold, but I'd even actually Martinelli sell. Odegaard probably hold. I think he had a good game against United, got a good goal. So I think he's a hold, but yeah, Martinelli's probably a sell. He's done nothing so far this season, really. You're just sort of clinging on to past glory a little bit if you're that desperate to hold on to him. Back to when you could triple up on Arsenal midfielders last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And they don't actually have a very good fixture run until halfway through the season now. So I think if you're clinging on to any Arsenal assets aside from Saka, then it's time to start really re-examining that.
Yeah. What about City midfielders? Speaking of top of the table midfielders.
Well, everyone was rushing in for Phil Foden, understandably so. That being said, I'm not convinced he's starting every single game. I think Alvarez and Haaland are going to be starting. They've just got the new signing, Doku. He started the game. It looks rubbish in the game, but he at least started for them. Grealish's injury, so he'll be back in. You've got to think Foden's probably the one that's going to make way.
It's hard to know, isn't it? And again, like Champions League football starting up soon. City once again get the easiest group known to man.
Of course.
So that's obviously something just to have to navigate, which always makes it a little bit more difficult. But yeah, I think Foden's a hold. I don't think you're definitely not rushing to sell him. He has still had a decent amount of points, 21 in 4 games, although he's got 1 fewer points than James Ward-Prowse, who's played 1 fewer games. But I won't talk about that, even though I just did.
But he's the only City midfielder you're looking at. And actually, as much as we talked about Walker last week, I have U-turns and I've decided that this is the season I don't own any City defenders all season.
They do still have the lowest XG conceded in the league.
Doesn't matter.
That being said, they've only kept
will still concede an 80-plus minute goal every single game they play. That's just how City work.
And that's why Ederson is the worst keeper to own, because you just feel like it should be a clean sheet every week, but it never is.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking at a premium keeper, I would rather, and you're going to laugh at this, I would rather go with Alisson over Ederson right now. Because
I would as well. I'm not going to laugh at that one.
And the reasoning is, Alisson, you're not going to have 3 Liverpool players at the moment. Or maybe I doubt you're going to have 3 Liverpool players at the moment, just based on affordability. You could have 3 City players elsewhere. If you really want a City defender and you're looking at Alvarez and Haaland, or Alvarez, Haaland and Foden. So I think you need to keep that 3rd City spot free. I think the 3rd Liverpool spot you can give away, especially if you're not owning Salah.
Yeah, I think you probably the logic is there. It's sound. I can't really argue with it as much as I'd like to.
Yeah, I also think maybe Nick Pope over either, but I'm not sure 5.5 is worth a goalkeeper who forgot to clean sheets like halfway through last season.
Yeah, that's the issue, isn't it?
So I think goalkeepers we can discuss in a bit. Let's talk defenders. Trippier avoids. No one's buying him because they're rubbish. No one's selling him because no one was stupid enough to start with Trippier. I think he's the biggest sell we can find, though, right?
Yeah, maybe. But when you look at their next few fixtures, do you want to sell before Sheffield United and Burnley? That's the question for me.
Is he more of an asset than Botman or Burn?
No, but is he worth selling because of that?
Yes, because it frees up 2 million.
Yeah, true. I'll take your point.
Botman and Burn, I think, are going
to be honest with you, I'd forgotten he was that expensive because I haven't even considered him.
Yeah, he's 6.5 million or whatever it is, whereas Botman and Burn are 4.5. So I think Botman and Burn are buys just about. Trippier's a sell. What do you think about Trent Alexander-Arnold?
I don't know. And I knew this was coming. And it's really hard because 1 return in 4 games, which was a good return of 12 points. But other than that, 1, 2 and 1. And that's not worth 8 million as a defender.
He was really good against Aston Villa.
So I think, the issue is now, the fixtures you've got, he's a hold if you've got him. But I don't think he's a buy yet. 1 game is not making a buy for me.
Agreed. But he was really good against Aston Villa.
Yeah, but you were in the early kickoff in your next game, so...
Oh, yeah, I'm not getting him for the next game. Liverpool in the early kickoff is an absolute hard avoid.
Even though it's Wolves, I'm still like...
Even though it's Wolves, you're still not going there. That being said, after that, I think from game week 9, when I'm probably going to wildcard an 8 or 9, maybe 8 actually, because Spurs have Luton then. But around then, I will be seriously looking at bringing Trent in and really hope that I'm justified in doing so, because he wasn't really going into midfield. The way he was playing against Aston Villa was, not that I know, because I didn't watch the game, so you couldn't watch it legally in the UK. Of course, I didn't watch the game. But what he was doing as I watched the game throughout the 90 minutes was moving less into that central midfield role, more into like a marauding centre-back role. So when we were on the ball, he'd basically fill in for the centre-back, but then push forward with it. And he was able to cover a lot more of the defensive stuff, but also the balls he was putting over the top to Salah were absolutely awesome. And Diaz as well, time and time and time again. And it just became, poor Luca Digne had an absolute meltdown halfway through the game just because he was dealing with Trent's over the top balls and Salah running in behind. I do think there's a lot of FPL returns in Trent, and I maintain that he is going to get over 200 points this season.
That's a bold shout given the start.
It's only 4 games in. How much is he on so far?
15.
15. Yeah.
16.
But you've also got to think the big teams after the first international break start shoring up their defences. So the best teams are the ones most likely to get clean sheets. So you're looking at Arsenal, City, Brighton, Liverpool. I want to say Chelsea, but I'm not going to say Chelsea. But you get the idea. The top teams start shoring up their defences every season after the first international break. So I think there's a lot of points there for Trent that are left on the table at the moment.
You are the definition of an optimistic fan, aren't you?
More like a Trent fanboy, but you said,
yeah. I don't know. I just feel I get the hype, but he's just a hold for me at the moment. I agree with you when that wild card window comes around. He's one that's definitely worth considering, but until then, I just don't think he can be a buy.
If you don't have Salah, he's a buy. I'm saying I have Salah, so I don't have the budget. But if you don't have Salah, you can swap Salah for Bruno Fernandes and Baldock for Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah, but why would you want Bruno?
2 games ago, he was awesome.
Yeah, but it's Man United.
That's true. You don't want to get, I don't know, well, we'll see. I want to wait a few more games, but then you strike Højlund, I think, for 7 million. Looks like it could be a bargain.
He could be a handful, yeah. He's definitely, in that little cameo he had, looked like he can give defenses some problems. Anyway,
pinch of salt. Mudryk looked really good in the cameo he had against Liverpool.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything, does it? Matty Cash, my favourite player so far this season, because he's the 4th highest scoring defender, but has 2 games where he's got -1.
Bye. And you captain him 100% of the time, knowing that 50% of the time you're going to get hurt. I'm not joking when I say Matty Cash is a buy, which is weird when they just lost 3-0 to Liverpool, but he was playing left wing. He almost scored. It was pulled out a good save from Alisson. The game before that, he got 17 points. For me, he's top of my wish list for defenders right now, ahead of Trent Alexander-Arnold for me. There's a very, very, very strong chance I'm going to be bringing him in. From game week 8, his fixtures are glorious. So the next game against Crystal Palace looks good. Then he's away at Chelsea, home to Brighton. But then game week 8, it's Wolves, West Ham, Luton, Forest, and then Fulham. So I think Matty Cash for me is a buy.
Yeah, I agree. And especially at that price as well. Currently sat at 4.6. That is very cheap for a defender who's already on 21 points for the season.
Absolutely. Spurs defenders, Udogie and Romero. And the new one, Van der Ven.
The own goal merchant.
Already on 50.
I think Romero is a hold, not a buy for me, just because I find it hard to get excited about centre halves. And he's been stat padded a bit by a couple of goals. Doggy, I think, is the one that you want to be buying.
I just do have a feeling about Van der Ven, you know. I just feel like he's got some headed goals in him. He looks really good. He's organising that defence. I think he's got bonus points in him when they keep clean sheets. You just sometimes have that gut feeling, and I think Van der Ven.
I feel like this is one of those feelings that you're going to just get haunted by.
No, what's going to happen is I'm not going to get him, and he's going to score 2. In the week, before FPL kicked off, I texted you saying, I'm thinking about getting Son. And you were like, you're fucking crazy, don't do it. Then Son goes and scores a hat-trick. Sometimes gut feelings are worth listening to if they're about Tottenham Hotspur players.
I stand by my comments.
What's your thoughts on Estupinian? And Chilwell, give them both to me.
They've both got to be holds. Just because I don't feel like you can get rid of Estupinian just because of his ownership, and it's too risky, and it can come back to bite you in the arse because there's a lot of points to be lost there. They almost, like, they weren't far off keeping a clean sheet at the weekend. It was just a late sort of bit of scrappy and poor defending that let them down. So that would have been another return. So it would have been a return in 3 out of 4 games for him. So that is definitely hold. Chilwell, again, I think you've got a hold. I don't think he's a buy anymore, which I would have said he would have been 2 weeks ago. But they're fixtures, you can't really turn your nose up at them.
Agreed. It's very, very frustrating, though, because he was terrible. Hauled off early as well on the weekends as the captain. 2nd game in a row. It's really not a good look, is it?
No, not at all.
I think because of fixtures, he's a hold, and Estupinian, he's just a season-long hold.
Yeah.
I don't think, Matty Cash aside, I don't think any defenders, or maybe Udoki as well, and one Spurs defender, they're the only buys in defence for me. I don't think any goalkeepers are at buy.
What about Pedro Porro?
Pedro Porro is a bit of a buy. I fancy myself a bit of Pedro Porro. 3 returns in 3 games, 6, 6, and 4.
It's not bad, is it?
What?
If you're looking at their defence, then he's definitely one to keep an eye on because he is cheap as well. At 5. Oh, no, he's actually more expensive, than the others. So,
but
yeah, you probably
do. I just don't think he's got that place 100% nailed down, though, because Emerson Royale was really good.
Why don't you go buy Sergio Reguilon?
I'm not going to buy Reguilon, but I'm going to look at someone better. Serge Aurier.
The legend. The man, the myth, the legend.
Did you buy him? You said you were considering it.
No, I didn't.
You didn't see the clean sheet against Chelsea away coming.
Funnily enough, no. Considering Nottingham Forest's absolutely imperious away form last season, I didn't see that coming.
The last position we've got to speak about is goalkeepers. They're all a sell.
No, Jordan Pickford's a buy.
Jordan Pickford is the biggest sellout of all the sells. Pickford's an Onana. Onana's more expensive, actually, so he's the worst keeper to own. And especially as, first, he's a terrible goalkeeper that makes clangers in every game. I told you they were downgrading De Gea. Second is that he's now got Maguire and Evans as a centre-back pairing in front of him. The next game is Brighton. It's going to be a shit show. Third, he's 5 million and he shouts at his teammates while continuing to F up over and over and over and over and over again. But
other than that,
I still prefer him to Pickford.
Yeah, probably.
Pickford is the ultimate sell. I think I've got Johnston and Turner at the moment. There's a good chance Johnston could lose his place to Dean Henderson.
I think he probably does.
So in that case, he's an obvious sell. So that's a transfer I need to make at some point. But I don't mind starting Turner for most games. Even like the next game, for example, Nottingham Forest have Burnley at home, whereas Crystal Palace have Aston Villa away. I'm starting Turner over Johnston regardless. But
yeah,
Yeah, I just think no one's really keeping clean sheets. Game week 6, Nottingham Forest play against Manchester City away. You need to make sure you have a backup for Turner then, because you do not want to be starting Turner in that game.
Do it. Loads of save points. Maybe.
I do think that's when you can look at getting Areola though, but then they've got Liverpool away, so maybe not. I'm just trying to see who has Man City right beforehand, so won't play Man City for a while. But the game after Man City for so many of these teams is Liverpool. So
it's a weird the way that seems to be working out. Like teams tend to have like a couple of tricky fixtures back to back. Brighton in a few weeks have Liverpool and City. West Ham's next 2 games are City and Liverpool. Then who else was it I was looking at earlier? Arsenal have got Spurs and City 2 out of 3. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it seems to be grouping the fixtures in bunches as well. Like you've always got Luton and Fulham seems to be close to each other for a lot of these as well. So it's interesting how it's worked out.
I'm looking forward to West Ham having a nice run.
When do you have a nice run? Because you really don't. It really doesn't look good in this first half of the season for you, does it?
Which is why it's a good job we've got some points on the board already.
It was very much needed, wasn't it? Yikes, I'm looking all the way through the fixture ticker. I don't think you ever have a good run of 4 games.
I feel like this is always the way with West Ham. We never get a good run anywhere.
This is horrendous. Like the whole season, you don't have 4 good games in a row. You have 3 at several points. So game week 32 to 34, you've got 3 green fixtures.
I'll circle that one on my calendar. But yeah, like it took us 10 weeks to get 10 points in the league last season. So to have that already is not bad.
No, it's not. I guess game week 11, West Ham had Brentford away, Forest at home, Burnley away, Palace at home before Tottenham away. But then they've got Fulham away and Wolves at home. So that's a
fairly decent run. Yeah.
So that's when you want to be owning Jared Bowen.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Fantastic. In terms of goalkeepers, then, I would say Alisson is a buy if you want a premium keeper, but that's about it.
I just think you're not changing your keepers unless you absolutely have to, are you? Let's be honest, or you're wildcarding. So,
yeah, I completely agree. Well,
I wonder if David Raya gets a run in Arsenal's goal at any point soon.
I mean, he's got to, surely.
You'd imagine so at some point. Otherwise, it seems a weird signing for him anyway.
Yeah, very much so. But surely with Ramsdale making mistakes, then he's got to be on the cards.
Time will tell. Watch this space, as we've always said.
Wait and see. Awesome. Well, look, that is what we've got time for today. It is international break. Hold your transfers. Don't rage transfer like I did.
Please do.
I'm probably going to have to take a -4 at some point to bring in Mbemo. Probably next week, so I've got to swap the keepers out as well. But whatever. Have fun. Relax.
It felt good at the time.
We'll be back with a Game Week 5 preview. If you need any other interaction with us, because an hour isn't enough, you can find us on Twitter @BigAtTheBack.
Yeah, I'm at Higgins92. Tommy's at TomMadden92. If you would do us all a favor, and if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe and all that goodness, and leave us a rating on Spotify as well, or however you get your podcasts. That would also be much appreciated. I did have a think about next week, obviously a Game Week 5 preview. Maybe we'll do a wild card squad each as well, as what we would do if we were wild carding, because I feel like international break time, quite a lot of people like to wild card, so we'll see what we would do if we were in that boat.
Yeah, be very interesting to find out. Right, everyone, have a good rest of the week and speak to you all next week.
Bye.